You write the long paragraphs. You ask for a conversation. You try to explain exactly how they hurt you, hoping that this time they'll finally understand and give you the respect you deserve. You rehearse your points. You soften your tone. You add kindness to the knife so they won't feel attacked. You over-clarify. You over-own. You over-apologize for having standards. They aren't misunderstanding you. They are studying you. Every time you explain yourself, you hand them the exact blueprint for how to manipulate you again. Your desire for closure is their favorite weapon. Your honesty becomes their data. Your vulnerability becomes their leverage. Your love becomes their laboratory. If you want to take your power back instantly, you must master the most dangerous weapon in dark psychology, the sudden discard. Watch every second of this, because once you learn to detach this fast, they will be the ones begging for answers, and you will finally understand the forbidden truth you were never allowed to say out loud. Machiavelli wasn't talking about evil people in some distant century. He was describing power dynamics that never changed. He was describing the machinery inside toxic relationships, the predictable human hunger for attention, the dopamine pull of intermittent reward, the weakness of the mind when it craves relief. He was describing you when you keep coming back for closure like it's oxygen, and here is the part that will sting, but free you. The person who needs closure is always at the mercy of the person who refuses to give it. You've been living inside a system, a psychological economy, where your reactions are currency, where your explanations are payment, where your tears are proof that they still matter, where your anger is entertainment, where your hope is a leash. So I'm going to answer the forbidden question you've been quietly terrified to ask. What if the closure you've been begging for is the exact thing keeping you enslaved to them? In the next minutes, you will learn how to execute the sudden discard so cleanly, so surgically, that you stop being a source of supply and become a phantom. You will learn how emotional detachment works at the level of the nervous system. You will learn manipulation defense that doesn't require arguing, pleading, or winning a conversation. You will learn the Machiavellian strategy of scarcity applied to your presence. You will learn how to detach quickly without performing cruelty, just precision. And you will learn how to do it in a way that terrifies them, not because you harm them, but because you remove what they used to control. Access. If these ideas resonate with you, hit that subscribe button for more top-tier content. Also, drop a vanish instantly in the comments so I know you're ready. Let's dive in. You think you want answers. You think you want an apology. You think you want a final conversation where they finally admit what they did. You think you want mutual understanding. You think you want peace. But what you actually want, what your nervous system is begging for, is relief. You want the tension to stop. You want the uncertainty to end. You want your mind to stop replaying the last message, the last look, the last contradiction. You want to stop feeling like you're standing in a doorway that never closes. You want to stop imagining that if you just say it the perfect way, they'll suddenly become human. And that is exactly why they keep you there, because in toxic relationships, closure is not a destination. Closure is a slot machine. They give you a little warmth, then they pull it away. They give you a maybe, then they vanish. They give you a half apology, then they blame you for needing one. They throw you a breadcrumb, and your brain lights up like it found water in a desert, and you call it progress. You weren't weak. You were conditioned. You weren't crazy. You were trained by intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism behind addiction, the same mechanism dark psychology uses to explain why intelligent people stay attached to people who disrespect them. So when you send that long paragraph, you think you're taking your power back. But you're not. You are auditioning for basic decency in a theater where the manager profits from your humiliation. And I know the exact moment you've lived through. You write something honest, something clean, something undeniable, something any rational person would respect. You hit send. Your heart races, your stomach drops, your mind waits, and then they do it. They respond with one sentence or a joke or a vague, "I'm sorry you feel that way," or nothing at all. And the humiliation is total, because now your truth is sitting there exposed, unanswered, like you placed your dignity on the table and they didn't even bother to look at it. That sting you feel? That is not love. That is your status being denied. Power dynamics are brutal like that. The one who can leave without explanation holds the frame. The one who begs to be understood is trapped inside the other person's reality. Stop arguing with people whose reality requires you to be the villain. You've been trying to be the mature one. You've been trying to be the communicator. You've been trying to be the healer. You've been trying to be the reasonable adult in a room full of psychological games. But Machiavelli would tell you the truth. When you keep returning for closure, you teach them that access to you is permanent, even when they behave like a thief. Never announce your exit to a thief. Just lock the door. And yes, you're going to feel a rush of guilt when you hear that, because you've been trained to think that leaving quietly is cruel. It's not cruel, it's manipulation defense. If you announce your departure, it's not a boundary, it's a negotiation. You don't negotiate your exit with someone who benefited from your captivity. But you still need to understand the deeper trap before you can execute the sudden discard without relapse. Because the trap of the dopamine tap is subtle, and you're probably feeding them right now without realizing it. You think they miss you because you mattered, but in dark psychology, you learn to separate love from supply. A narcissist doesn't miss you. They miss the supply of emotional reactions you provided. They miss your attention. They miss your explanations. They miss your availability. They miss your instant replies. They miss your anxiety. They miss your hope. They miss your anger. They miss your forgiveness. They miss your willingness to keep the story alive. You were not just a person to them. You were a dopamine source. You were a button they could press. They press you with silence. They press you with flirting. They press you with coldness. They press you with compliments. They press you with ambiguity. They press you with jealousy tactics. They press you with, "I'm busy." They press you with, "You're too much." They press you with, "You're imagining things." And every time you react, you confirm that the button still works. This is why your over-explaining is so valuable to them. When you explain what hurt you, you reveal where you bruise. You reveal your triggers. You reveal what you fear. You reveal what you crave. You reveal what you will tolerate to avoid abandonment. That's not communication to them. That's a user manual. So here's the first law of emotional detachment. You cannot detach from someone while you are still trying to be understood by them. You cannot become free while you're still begging the jailer to admit the bars exist. And the reason it feels impossible is because your brain is trying to complete a loop. Your brain wants a coherent story. Your brain wants a clean ending. Your brain wants a moral conclusion where the person who hurt you finally acknowledges your humanity. But the loop is exactly what keeps you returning. The person who needs closure is always at the mercy of the person who refuses to give it. So your goal is not to get closure from them. Your goal is to manufacture closure inside yourself by removing the stimulus. That is what the sudden discard is. Not cruelty, not revenge, not drama, not a gotcha. It is a strategic withdrawal of your presence, fast enough to break the addiction cycle, clean enough to end the negotiation, cold enough to reset the power dynamics. Machiavelli understood that power is not in what you do, but in what you withhold. Here is how you apply it. You withhold access. You withhold explanations. You withhold reaction. When you remove your energy instantly, you force them to sit in the dark with their own demons, and that is what terrifies them. Not because you won an argument, because you removed the mirror that made them feel powerful. But there's a risk here, a massive one. If you detach sloppily, you create the illusion of absence while still leaking supply. If you discard theatrically, you feed them one last meal of attention. If you vanish but keep watching their stories, you are still spiritually in the room. To execute the sudden discard, you must follow one absolute rule. If you break it, the strategy collapses. Here is the rule. You do not leave to punish them. You leave to end your own addiction to them. Because if your motive is punishment, you will keep monitoring them for results. You will keep checking if they noticed. You will keep peeking for signs of regret. And the moment you do that, you hand them your leash again. So we're going deeper. You want to terrify them? You want to destabilize the manipulator? You want to rewrite the power dynamics? Then you have to become scarce in the one place they assumed you were infinite. Your availability. The fastest way to destroy someone's ego is to show them they are completely replaceable. And replaceable doesn't mean you replace them with another person. Replaceable means you replace the role they played in your mind with something stronger, your self-respect. Now let's talk about the Machiavellian art behind this. Because you're not just leaving. You're creating scarcity so absolute it triggers obsession. You were taught to communicate. You were taught to talk it out. You were taught that silence is immature. You were taught that blocking is extreme. You were taught that disappearing is toxic. Sometimes that's true when you're dealing with healthy people, but you're not dealing with healthy people. You're dealing with a system of manipulation where your kindness is exploited, your empathy is harvested, and your need for closure is converted into control. So here is the permission you've been starving for. You are allowed to leave without convincing them. You are allowed to detach quickly. You are allowed to become emotionally detached without giving a speech. You are allowed to end a toxic relationship without a courtroom-style closing argument. You are allowed to stop being the bigger person when being bigger means being used. This is Machiavellian strategy applied to your nervous system. You remove yourself as a predictable resource, because predictability is what manipulators feed on. They know you will reply. They know you will explain. They know you will forgive. They know you will reopen the door. They know you will give them one more chance. They know you will accept crumbs if they call it love. So the sudden discard is a strategic shock. You become the variable they can't calculate. You become the door that locks without warning. You become the number that stops ringing. You become the person who vanishes mid-sentence, not out of immaturity, but out of surgical self-protection. And this is where Cialdini's scarcity principle becomes a weapon. What is scarce is perceived as valuable. What is withdrawn becomes desired. What is unavailable becomes the object of fixation. You don't have to convince them you are valuable. You only have to stop proving it. Because the more you try to prove your worth, the more you signal doubt. And the moment you withdraw, something dark and predictable happens. Their brain scrambles. This is exactly what happens in their brain the moment they realize they have been blocked everywhere. The dopamine faucet shuts off. The easy access disappears. The control they assumed collapses. Their ego, which was inflated by your pursuit, suddenly has no fuel. And they do not interpret that as, "Oh, I hurt them, they left." They interpret it as, "How dare they take away what I owned?" That's the terror, not that you're gone, that you left on your terms. Power dynamics flip when you stop negotiating reality with someone who profits from distortion. But beware, when you create scarcity, the manipulator will attempt to restore supply. They will not come back with truth. They will come back with tactics. Beware of the panic response. Within 72 hours, they will use a specific tactic to test if you are really gone, and you need to recognize it instantly, because this is where most people relapse and lose everything. They will send a casual "hey." They will react to a story. They will accidentally call. They will ask a question they could Google. They will create a small emergency. They will send nostalgia. They will act confused. They will pretend innocence. They will offer a conversation, finally. They will dangle closure like bait. And if you bite, you re-enter the cage. So you need a protocol so clean it's almost inhuman. Not because you are heartless, because you are done being owned. Now we move into the execution, the sudden discard itself, how to detach so fast it terrifies them, while keeping your behavior ethical, controlled, and strategically silent. You don't drift away, you don't fade slowly, you don't take space while still watching. You don't announce your departure like it's a performance. You execute the sudden discard like a door locking, fast, quiet, final. And before you do anything, you anchor your mind with the truth that ends the fantasy. What if the closure you've been begging for is the exact thing keeping you enslaved to them? Closure in a toxic relationship is often just one more hit, one more conversation, one more emotional scene where you hope they finally become the person you needed. But Machiavelli would call that surrender. Because the moment you need something from them, an apology, an explanation, a confession, you give them leverage again. So here is the Machiavellian art. You stop wanting what they control. You stop seeking closure from the source of the wound. You become your own judge. You become your own witness. You become your own ending. And now the steps. Follow them in order. Step 1. You stop explaining. You do not send the paragraph. You do not send the one last message. You do not list your reasons. You do not write a manifesto. You do not justify your pain to someone who enjoyed causing it. Because every explanation is supply. Every explanation is a handle. Every explanation is a thread they can pull. Stop for a moment and calculate the energy you waste trying to be understood by someone who benefits from misunderstanding you. Step 2. You remove access in one motion. You mute, you block, you unfollow, you remove shared visibility, you disable the easy paths, and if you can't fully block because of logistics, co-parenting, work, legal obligations, you create a controlled channel. One platform, one purpose, one tone, no emotion, no extra words, no late-night replies, no checking in, no personal content, no availability. That is emotional detachment in practice. You restrict contact to necessity and you strip it of supply. Step 3. You end the dopamine loop on your side because the sudden discard fails if you still peak. You don't watch their stories. You don't check their profile. You don't ask mutual friends. You don't scroll their comments. You don't replay old messages like their scripture. Because that is still contact, just private contact. And your brain cannot detach from a stimulus you keep touching. Step 4, you pre-decide your silence. This is where most people break. They get baited and they improvise. You do not improvise. You decide now, no response. Not a leave me alone, not a please respect my boundary, not a you hurt me, not a I'm done, not a goodbye. Because any response confirms the button still works. A narcissist doesn't miss you. They miss the supply of emotional reactions you provided. So you become the person who produces no reaction. Step 5. You prepare for the mirror attack. When they feel you slipping away, they will often try to flip your identity. They'll call you cold. They'll call you immature. They'll call you avoidant, they'll call you dramatic, they'll call you toxic, they'll call you cruel. Stop arguing with people whose reality requires you to be the villain. You don't defend yourself. You don't correct the narrative. You don't chase the reputation, because that is still negotiation. And if you're thinking, but they'll think I'm the bad guy, understand the Machiavellian truth. They will think what protects their ego. Your job is not to manage their story. Your job is to protect your future. Step 6, you kill the guilt spike. You will feel it. It will hit you like a wave. Your body will panic. Your mind will whisper, am I being unfair? Am I overreacting? What if I'm wrong? What if they change? What if I'm the problem? What if I should just talk? You will feel an intense spike of guilt in step 6. Here is the psychological trick to instantly kill that guilt. You label it correctly. You say, this is withdrawal, not love. Withdrawal. Your brain is detoxing from a dopamine source, and detox feels like grief. Detox feels like doubt. Detox feels like guilt. So you don't obey it. You observe it. You breathe. You walk. You lift. You write. You sleep. You eat. You return to your life like a sovereign person rebuilding a city after a siege. No one is coming to save you, and once you accept that, you become dangerous. Step 7. You replace the void with a mission, because absence without replacement becomes obsession. If you remove them and leave emptiness, your mind will chase the old stimulus to fill the gap. So you fill it with something that gives you clean dopamine, skill building, money building, body building, network building, healthy, slow, earned. A new standard of life that makes the old chaos feel primitive. This is where your revenge becomes real. You become the person who no longer needs them to feel alive, and something strange happens. Once you reach the apex of unavailability, a strange phenomenon occurs in your own brain. You start to feel calm where you used to feel hunger. You start to feel pride where you used to feel shame. You start to feel quiet power where you used to feel pleading. Because emotional detachment isn't emptiness. Emotional detachment is autonomy. And autonomy is the root of invincibility, but we're not done. Because after you vanish, the world changes. Their behavior changes. Your impulses change. The environment tests you. So you need the aftershock protocol, the part nobody talks about, the part that prevents the relapse that drags you back into the same toxic relationships with a different mask. You think the discard ends the story. It doesn't. It ends the access. And ending access is what triggers the aftershock. Here is what you must expect, because expecting it is manipulation defense. First, you will see the bait parade. They will try sweetness. They will try nostalgia. They will try apology theater. They will try I've been thinking. They will try I miss you. They will try can we talk. They will try I didn't mean it. They will try you're right. They will try I'm changing. Then, if sweetness fails, they will switch. They will try rage. They will try insults. They will try triangulation, pulling other people in. They will try smear campaigns. They will try making you look unstable. They will try framing your silence as abuse. They will try to provoke you into defending yourself. And here is the trap. Even defending yourself gives them what they want, your attention. Machiavelli understood that power is not in what you do, but in what you withhold. You withhold reaction. You withhold explanation. You withhold access. Second, you will face the memory ambush. Your mind will highlight their good moments. Your mind will romanticize the beginning. Your mind will edit out the disrespect. Your mind will forget the confusion. Your mind will blur the cruelty. That's not truth. That's chemistry. So you create a reality anchor. You write down what happened. You write down the moments you felt small. You write down the contradictions. You write down the times you begged for basic respect. You write down the times you felt your stomach drop after they ignored you. Not to live in bitterness, to prevent self-betrayal. Third, you will encounter the closure mirage. They will offer you the thing you wanted most. Finally, a long conversation, a deep explanation, a confession, a tearful apology, a real talk. And your entire body will say, this is it, this is the ending. But if you accept that conversation, you teach them a devastating lesson. All they have to do to regain access is pretend to become what you needed. So you remember the law. The person who needs closure is always at the mercy of the person who refuses to give it. You don't need their closure now because you manufactured your own. You left. Fourth, you will be tested by your own identity because you built a persona around being understanding. You built a persona around being reasonable. You built a persona around being the one who communicates. You built a persona around being loyal. And the moment you detach quickly, you will feel like you are betraying yourself. But you're not betraying yourself. You're integrating your shadow, the part of you that can say enough without a speech, the part of you that can walk away without begging, the part of you that can refuse access to someone who treated you like a resource. This is the final secret to the protocol, something society calls toxic, but it is actually your salvation. You stop trying to be seen as good by people who used your goodness as a weapon against you. You stop chasing moral approval from immoral behavior. You become loyal to your future, not to their appetite. And now the final upgrade. You learn to detach so fast that it terrifies them, not as a one-time move, but as a permanent trait. You become the kind of person who can leave the moment disrespect appears. You become the kind of person who doesn't bargain with bad behavior. You become the kind of person whose absence is immediate and irreversible. Because the only way to never be manipulated again is to become too expensive to test. That is what emotional detachment really is. You are no longer a public resource. You are private property. You are not for trial. You are not for negotiation. You are not for maybe. You are not for breadcrumbs. You are not for half-love. You are not for confusion. You are not for a rotating door. You are for respect or nothing. And yes, that will reduce your options. Good. Your options were the problem. Your tolerance was the problem. Your maybe they'll change was the problem. Your longing for closure was the chain. So here is the transformation, clean and complete. You were betrayed. You recognized the game. You felt the anger. You received the validation. You were given permission. You weaponized absence. And now you step into invincibility. You don't need them to admit anything. You don't need them to understand anything. You don't need them to apologize. You don't need them to care. You don't need them to miss you. You need you to stop returning, because every return is a vote for your own captivity. Now we end where power begins, at the door. Never announce your exit to a thief. Just lock the door. Drop vanish instantly in the comments if you're ready to stop begging for closure and start moving like a phantom. Subscribe if you're done consuming relationship advice that turns you into a softer target. This isn't comfort. This is dark psychology applied to freedom. This is Machiavelli applied to modern power dynamics. This is manipulation defense that doesn't require confrontation. This is emotional detachment built into your identity. This is where silent strategists come to become untouchable, calm, precise, and impossible to bait. If you want to know how to maintain this aura of cold dominance when you're forced to interact with them, click the video on screen. See what others miss, know what others fear, become who others can't.